The Amtrak disaster near Philadelphia puts more than just the Northeast Corridor on edge and on notice about government spending. And the National Security Agency has been put on notice by nervous lawmakers representing nervous voters who don't want their phone data collected, but are also clamoring to be protected from terrorism. Let's take the hard line of both issues from someone who was involved from the governmental level. Pleasure to be joined by the Republican representative for Pennsylvania's 4th Congressional District, a region that is served by Amtrak. He's part of the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure and the Committee on Homeland Security. Welcome back, Congressman Scott Perry. Congressman, thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
Let's deal right away, first of all, with what happened in Philadelphia. Right after this wreck, the Democrats in Washington screaming for more money in Amtrak funding. Republicans on the other side saying, wait a minute, you've gotten enough money here over 4 decades. You've got to spend this money correctly here. But the American public wants to know why we keep dumping money into a system that they're afraid, quite frankly, is going to hurt them or perhaps kill them.
That's exactly right. And let's just juxtapose ourselves from the folks that want to use this for political capital. It's reprehensible. You know, from my standpoint, the first thing to do is put your heart out to the victims of the accident in Philadelphia and their families, and of course the first responders who've helped them. Now, we know that there's going to be an investigation, but right now we can tell you that we recently authorized $1.4 billion a year for Amtrak, in addition to the $300 million per year to states that have passenger rail for improvements. And the Northeast Corridor, where this occurred, this is called the Northeast Corridor. Their profit last year was nearly $500 million. And to continue on, we require positive train control. It's a system that makes sure that accidents like this don't happen by virtue of an engineer speeding into a turn or something like that, by a system that automatically slows down the train at the appropriate time. Now, at this portion of the system, Amtrak has a system called automatic train control. It's not necessarily positive train control, but it's very close to it. And to be further clear, this is the only place on their system where they have this automatic train control. So, to use this argument that, Republicans haven't supported infrastructure, quite honestly, it's just incredibly poor taste and insulting, not only to members of Congress, but certainly to the families and the victims of
What I
the
think it is, too, Congressman, it's a little bit despicable to the people who see that for 40 years plus, we have been, as taxpayers, funding Amtrak, and it continues to be a disaster. I mean, look, this is all infrastructure. You're talking about security systems, maintenance, training, hiring. This is not just one person making a mistake, which it may be, but infrastructure is still involved here, and it is still a waste of money. Is it not time then to take Amtrak, just junk it, and let it become private?
Well, listen, we would love it to be private, and the Railway Act that we just passed opens up the door to competition and some privatization, which is what we all think needs to happen. But remember this as well. This is the only portion of the line that makes money. So Amtrak takes money from this portion of the line, that $480 to $500 million in profit, and then spends it in other places where nobody's riding Amtrak. It seems to me, on a place that gets 2,000 trains daily, you should put the money and the safety implementation where the train is being used, and that's what didn't happen. That's what's not happening, and that's what we're trying to fix. So, with all due respect, what the Democrats say is, let's just throw more money at this. They're not interested in solving the problem. They're just interested in throwing more money around. And they say, well, if you'd have just spent the hundreds of more millions of dollars on infrastructure, this wouldn't have happened. Well, I imagine if we would have given the engineer $100 million, he wouldn't be working for Amtrak, and this wouldn't be happening. But that's not the answer.
It is all fair to say you can't just throw money at something and all of a sudden make it better. I got about a minute left. The
Yes,
House approving the measure ending the NSA bulk phone data collection program. People are still worried. They don't want to have their privacy impaired. But is it time to say that maybe this did go overboard? Maybe this is the right thing to do?
It actually did go overboard, and it's not Scott Perry saying it, nor is it actually the Congress saying it. It is the Second Circuit Court who walked right up to the line and said this is everything but unconstitutional, unlawful search and seizure under the Fourth Amendment. H.R. 2048 actually expands the statutory basis for large-scale collection of most data. It's just that the government's not doing it. Now they have Verizon doing it or Google doing it. And so, does that make you feel any more comfortable as an American?
So is it fair to say then that those Republicans in the Senate right now are unconvinced that there's reform needed, they got to change their minds here. They have been shown what you and many others would consider the right way to do things.
Well, I certainly think that they should reconsider this and look at not what seems palatable for them, but what should be done, which is preserving the constitutional authority that is outlined in the Constitution, that unlawful search and seizure shall not happen in America. This is not, a banana republic, a third world country where the dictator gets to determine, where you are, what you're doing, what you're saying, and who you're meeting with. But yet, indeed, if that's what the government wants right now, they have access to that information. They have had it for a long time, and they're just going to continue it right now.
I'd be more concerned about what Google has sometimes because they probably have a whole lot more. Congressman Scott Perry, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
All right, my pleasure. Stay with us. The fastest 60 minutes in news, The Hard Line, continues.